Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Thursday, the 25th of April, ANZAC Day, is coming to you from London. And we start by looking at the dollar index pushing higher yesterday again. So breaking out, that's the really big story here, breaking out of multi-month highs. And we're seeing that really on the chart, the highest level we've seen really now since 2017. So that's a 2-year high really. So dollar looking strong, and that means, of course, that the euro is breaking down to 2-year lows. So that strong dollar having a big impact, and we've got downside targets to 109, 108. So does look like we've got further still to go. Against the yen, the dollar is actually spiked up yesterday. It's come back most of that today, but it is still pretty strong. Against sterling, sterling weaker, now below 129, so that strong dollar having an impact there, and sterling is actually also weaker against the euro this morning, but did jump yesterday. The euro is really losing out here. Looking at sterling against the Swiss franc, a bit of a hiatus a couple of days ago, but back below the cloud is there as well. And if we look at Bitcoin, we see here we're at $5,400, just holding that support level at 5.4. Still looking pretty strong on the short and medium term charts. The S&P 500 index was down by 0.2% last night, and the Nasdaq also nudging a bit lower, and the Dow also down about 0.2% as well, and the Russell 2000 still struggling to break to new highs at the moment. The future this morning, little changed on the S&P future, and the Nasdaq E-mini just slightly up, so markets look set to open fairly flat. In the US, the FTSE down 0.6% this morning, but not enough to take it quite into bearish territory, and midcaps down 0.5%, again still holding their bullish trend. The DAX down not so much, that weaker euro probably helping German stocks, and the CAC current down 0.4%. We'll look at the European market stocks in a minute. Japan was down 0.5%, actually was up 0.5%, and the Hang Seng was down 0.7%, and China gave up quite a bit of ground to fall by 2.4%, just putting us back into short-term bearish territory. The Sensex bucked the trend, it was up 0.3%, and the Aussie market continues to power ahead, closed for the holiday in ANZAC Day, so it'll be interesting to see how we fare there. Brent crude is higher this morning, up to $75, so breaking to new highs. That $75 level quite psychologically important for Brent. It's the first time we've seen that level since last year, so significant there. And WTI also pushing higher to $66. US nat gas sitting at $2.46, still in the doldrums. Gold recovering a little bit to $12.77, just putting it back into short-term bullish territory, but we do have downside targets hanging over us at the moment. And then if we look at silver, it's also recovered a little bit on the gold market, but not quite enough to get back into bullish territory. US 10-year yields sitting at 2.5%, still in short-term bearish territory. This data coming from Thomson Reuters Icon, or if you're a Metastock Zenith user, the same data, really powerful system. Looking here at the Yahoo feed, this is free data from Yahoo, again into Updata, really powerful. Looking at the Dow, we start by ranking by percentage performance. Walt Disney was the best performer. They've really jumped after a strong showing a few weeks ago, and they continue to move higher, so that's really bullish confirmation. McDonald's was the second best performer. Chevron were down 3%, and Caterpillar were also lower. Not really affecting the chart that much there. Looking at the Nasdaq, the best performer in the Nasdaq was eBay. They were up 5% yesterday, breaking to new highs there. That's looking pretty good. And if we look at the downside, we had down 7% Cirrus XM, and that chart not looking great, looking like it's going into a downtrend with downside targets there, so looking a bit bearish. The Aussie market We saw Bellamy's. This is the same charts that we were looking at yesterday because of the holiday in Australia, and so looking to China, we had some pretty big falls there, down 2%. We only had 4 stocks up, and the worst performers, we saw quite a few stocks around 5% lower. China Communications, China Galaxy Securities lower, and then on the Nifty 50 in India. We have Ultra Tech Cement Limited. They're up 5.6%. That chart looking pretty bullish now, breaking to new highs as well. Not quite getting through the resistance barrier at 4,500 rupees, but still looking pretty good. And if we look at the downside, we've got Bharati Infratel down a massive 8%. So they've really struggled. Here we see the live pricing coming in from the Yahoo Finance feed. So looking lower there, down 8% versus the Dow Jones this year. Taking a look at Europe, we start by looking at the UK market. The best performer in the UK is Carnival. Only a handful of stocks up this morning. Carnival up 1.5%. Looking at the downside, we've got Sainsbury's falling 5% on that merger woes, so that's really not so good. And we're seeing the merger announcement this morning has pushed Sainsbury's 20% below the Dow performance so far this year, and the chart looking pretty bad. No clear downside target, so it's quite hard to call where the bottom is for Sainsbury's from here. Taking a look at the 250, the Civitas Social Housing up 20%. Not much liquidity in this stock, obviously. Caledonia Investments, they're up 19%. Again, not a great deal of liquidity here. Primary Health Properties is the worst performer, down 20%, and Greencoat down 15%. Again, we're noticing the lack of liquidity in the charts there. Taking a look at the Euro stocks, Bayer in Germany, having had a terrible several months, they're the best performer this morning, up 4%. They've still underperformed the Dow so far this year by 10%. Iberdrola in Spain, they're looking pretty strong this morning, up 2%. That chart looking very strong, trending very strongly the last several months. They've gone from €6 to €8, so quite strong. Nokia, the worst performer, down 9%. So we are seeing some quite big sell-offs in the market this morning. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.